What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming back with a box office breakdown for this past weekend, which once again saw Avatar: The Way of Water dominating the box office at the number one spot domestically, and it is getting very close to $1.9 billion and is very likely, if not guaranteed at this point, to pass the entire box office of SpiderMan No Way Home, which was one of the most impressive box office releases of the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic era. So Avatar is looking to take that top spot. And again, it makes a lot of sense at this point with so much money coming from the international market, which really had not been giving to a lot of these films over the last several years, but also too with the greater average ticket price because everyone's going to see this film in IMAX 3D and all of the premium formats, which just again makes a lot of sense because why would anyone want to spend any money on any movie unless they were going to feel like they were going to get their money's worth? And so apparently a lot of people are feeling like they're getting their money's worth from this movie. And again, if that's you, good on you. That's just not me. And yes, indeed, I am rocking a bit of a a mountain man get up, I guess you could say today. But let's go ahead and dive into the numbers. So as it says here, from Nancy over at Deadline, Avatar: Way of Water nears $1.9 billion, closing in on Spider-Man No Way Home. Today's game, Avatar: Way of Water continues to outdo itself, having crossed $1.8 billion globally and reaching nearly $1.9 billion at the worldwide box office. The estimated global cum through Sunday is $1.89 billion. Avatar 2 still ranks as the number 7th biggest film of all time, and that's not just for inflation. And yes, indeed, I said that word, which is triggering a lot of people. Inflation, because you have to take it into account, period. Ahead of it, at a number 6, is Spider-Man No Way Home, with $1.921 billion, so it should overtake that early this week. And so that is probably the only real true comparison in that list that you could actually take into account, because Spider-Man No Way Home came out, again, just a couple years ago, and so therefore the difference between those two films with inflation is really not going to be all that much. And so Avatar: Way of Water absolutely will be passing up that film. Whether or not it's truly the number 7th film biggest of all time, again, you do have to take those numbers into account because, again, it's the only fair way that you can really compare, the countless numbers of tickets being sold for movies in a long time ago when tickets didn't cost nearly as much, where in today's world you have so many less tickets being sold, but the price is so much higher. It's really not a fair comparison to say it's the most successful movie of all time without taking into account those criteria. And if that makes you triggered, then hey, good. Going into the actual charting itself over at thenumbers.com, as you can see, Avatar: Way of Water once again dominating domestically, $31.1 million, a 32% hold from the previous week. So even though it is starting to drop out of some theaters, they are clearly seeing a very good return on their investment. This film very much tracking well to reach $600 million likely by the end of next weekend. And so the chances of it catching up to a film like Top Gun: Maverick are definitely within the realm of possibility. I think that I last time said that I think that the end total domestic for this film is going to be somewhere between $600 and $750 million, or $600 and $700 million. And I still think that probably will still hold true. Obviously, with these kind of drops and with very little, really no competition at all at the box office, it really leaves this movie with a lot of room to run, as well as just having a lot of people who are going to see this film multiple times over, and a lot of people who are singing the praises of this movie. It makes a lot of sense as to why it continues to have very strong holds. But yes, I have people in my comment section, even on my channel, talk about how it's the 8th or 9th time that they've seen this movie, which to me just sounds like just unhealthy obsession, but again, that is just me. Megan coming in the number 2 spot, $17.9 million, a 41% hold. Again, this film overdid itself in its first week of release and is up to $56.4 million. So this little movie has actually started to make a decent amount of profit at this point in time, which I think will make Universal pretty happy. Puss in Boots only saw a 1% drop. That's pretty impressive in and of itself. Over $106.3 million. And this movie, after 4 weeks, has finally been able to actually catch up to its numbers and is very close to, and I'm now projecting this film will be a chart breaker. So this film will more than double what it made in the first 2 weeks of its release and will be a very large release because of that, and is already at the point now where it's making some profit. So yeah, the original projections based on the first 2 weeks of its release were, hey, depending on how those extra weeks go, depending on how those legs go, it could either make a little bit of profit or could end up being a little bit of a loss. It's looking like at this point in time, though, it is going to be, again, a pretty healthy gain. I think right now it's looking north of $20 million in the black right now. So kudos to Universal for putting that movie out and for people who are absolutely enjoying it. I've heard a lot of really positive things about it. Though the animation style for the action sequences definitely is something that is keeping me from wanting to actually go and see it myself. A Man Called Otto from Sony, after 3 weeks of release, is finally getting a wide release. Again, because they wanted to put this out in time for awards contention, and now it is available wide, and I just really have no interest in seeing another Tom Hanks movie. Coming at the number 5 spot is the brand new release from Lionsgate, Plane, one of the best titles of all time, has been said by many people at this point in time, making $10 million, and even though the actual budget for the movie is not all that high, roughly around $22.5 million or so, it's going to have to do pretty well for the remaining of its run to be able to make its money back. So it's definitely got that in sight. There's definitely a chance for that to happen, but whether it will happen or not is anyone's guess. Same thing can be said for House Party, which is a film from Warner Brothers that I believe was supposed to originally be straight to HBO Max, straight to HBO Max, and got a limited release at 1,400 screens. It's going to have a 17-day theatrical window, and there's no projected budget on this movie. Now, since this is the film that features LeBron James in some way, I just have to think to myself that this probably costs a little bit more than what a film like this should cost, but without those numbers in front of me, can't say for sure any which way. Also, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, as I had mentioned, $2.1 million means that it's at $449 million. So as I said, $450 million is a guarantee at this point in time, as I had been projecting for a while. The Whale coming at the number 8 spot, still a film that I really want to go see. Finally available at more screens, finally available near me, so hopefully I'll be able to see that. Of course, family time sometimes gets in the way of being able to do that, so still looking forward to seeing Brendan Fraser in that role. And then in the number 9 spot is the Whitney Houston film, I Want to Dance with Somebody, seeing a 51% drop, dropping 979 screens. So this is not seeing the same type of result as Puss in Boots is, right? These came out around the same time. Puss in Boots saw very strong holds, strong word of mouth. Whitney Houston didn't really get much attention at all and has not really gotten much word of mouth at all. And so therefore that film's looking like it's going to end up as a box office flop. So let's go ahead and talk about Avatar: The Way of Water, as I know that that's what a film that's, again, a lot of people, especially viewers of this channel, are obsessed with. And again, hey, if you like it, you go ahead, right, and like it all you want. Doesn't change the fact that it's just not a good movie. Oh, triggered! Oh, I just triggered people. Oh, can't trigger people. Anyway, Avatar: Way of Water is doing quite well. Again, the objective fact is that the film is doing well. $1.8 billion worldwide at this point in time, with about $200 million of that coming from communist China, as this can be said also for some of the other films that have been released not only by Disney, but a lot of the other big budget films, right? We typically see them get released in China, and this is really the return of Disney to China. It's been a while since their big releases have gotten in there. And hey, $200 million return to China, that's a pretty good return on investment there, especially for the Chinese Communist Party. Top Gun Maverick, though, Top Gun Maverick did not get released in China and still ended up making $1.4 billion, which shows you that you can still make a very good movie that is entertaining and is enjoyable by most people, and is also not able to give a single dime to the Chinese Communist Party. But what can be said for sure is that Avatar: Way of Water is blowing it out of the water. When it comes to the international numbers, the big question mark is going to be that domestic mark. $718 million was the final number for Top Gun Maverick. Avatar: Way of Water right now is at $562 million, and so there is definitely a good chance of that film being able to get within that range. If you actually look to the where it was at the same time in its release, $562 million is currently where it was for Avatar, where it is right now for Avatar: Way of Water. Whereas if you look to Top Gun Maverick, it was at $520 million, still not anywhere near the number that we saw for Spider-Man No Way Home's domestic numbers. So clearly, again, the domestic numbers are going to be much better for Spider-Man versus what Avatar's is internationally. That's going to be a very international heavy movie. And then this is, of course, now leaving to the point where Rogue One is no longer a true comp at this point. Right, it was going along with it. Avatar was going up along with it, but now has vastly surpassed it. And so now that film pretty much is going to be taken off the list. But it will be interesting because this film is about $40 million ahead of where Top Gun Maverick was. The interesting point is that this film is doing better on the weekends versus what Top Gun Maverick was able to do on the weekdays. If you actually look to these numbers and compare them to each other, right, you do see that the actual daily numbers, interestingly enough, there are several days where you actually have Top Gun and Maverick being able to pull in just a little bit more money, especially now in the fourth week of its release, right? 17 million on the Sunday, and then 7,558 versus the 3,432, and then you see it even got a lesser Friday. And so again, this is something that I've been mentioning for a long time and it's been triggering some people. I think that the length of time for the movie and the fact that people are really only going to see the film in the biggest screen, in the most expensive screen possible, is the reason why you're seeing these smaller numbers. Because even though while you're looking at these numbers and you're seeing one's higher than the other, that does not always tell the entire story, because that does not talk about actual net ticket sales. So there's no denying that there's a crap ton of people going to see Avatar: Way of Water, but there's also a crap ton of people going to see Top Gun Maverick, and the average ticket price of the people going to see those films, it was a lot higher for Avatar: Way of Water. And so It'll be interesting to see what the actual tickets are going to look like by the end of it, as there is a couple of metrics out there to figure out exactly how many raw tickets domestically were sold for any given film. But regardless of that, it's looking like the film will have a good chance of being able to maybe even catch up with Top Gun Maverick's domestic numbers. And going to the chart real quick before ending the video today. Again, we do like to do some box office charting here. With House Party not having an actual projected budget, can't really say whether or not that film is going to be a win or not. But what I can say is that Megan, now at $90 million for its first 2 weeks, projecting that film to make somewhere between 129 and 181 at the box office. And based off of that, that means I'm projecting the film to make somewhere between $59.7 and $90 million in net gain profit. Currently, it's at $36.4 million in net gain profit. Very impressive numbers there for that. Plane right now is at $27 million in the red, so that's why I said it's possible, but it would have to have really strong numbers and have some international presence, which at least at this point in time is not looking like it's going to happen. $42 million in the red still for the Whitney Houston film, which is not all that surprising. Babylon also still, again, hanging around $100 million loss. Puss in Boots, $20 million in the black, as you can see, very close to being able to actually double what it made in its first 2 weeks of its release. And then depending on who you're believing, whether it's James Cameron one day, James Cameron another day, or what the actual numbers are telling us from the actual production budgets that have been stated, which is what my charting is based off of, the film has made $528 million in net gain profit. But of course, if you take James Cameron's word on it, it actually either has just made profit or is barely making profit or who knows what. Again, I don't know what James Cameron knows, and clearly as the filmmaker, I would say he has to know something, but I'm going to go based on the numbers that have actually been given to us. But those are numbers as they stand. What else thoughts about these numbers? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you want a fuller box office breakdown, check me out over at OMB Reviews. And also, I do currently have right now the nominations that are being collected for the Wednesday Raven Awards. Is the award show that I held every single year for the past 5 years or so, and it is our way of boycotting the Oscars, as they tend to be complete and utter crap, as we just saw with the Golden Globes, which nobody watched, by the way, and Oscars probably will have a similar story. So if you want to have some fun and be able to talk about the best and the worst of 2022, then please check that out. And again, you can find more information about that over at OMB Reviews. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure to smash the like button, loud the fire button, Odyssey, and smash the rumble button. Have a wonderful day, a blessed Epiphany season, and as always, God bless.